Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I really appreciate everybody coming out to see this talk. My name's Ethan Rasiel, as you just heard, and I'm going to talk to you about PR for XR. Now, XR is kind of a new term. We've been talking about AR, we've been talking about VR. I think exactly what XR is depends on who you ask. I'm not a specialist in XR, but I am a specialist in PR. So I can fake the rest, but I can talk to you about PR. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk to you about what PR is. Do you need it? What's the point? How do you do it? If you want to bring an agency in to help you, how would you select one? And I'm going to give you some examples of some common mistakes and things to avoid from my experience. If you have questions, I want to keep this loose, so just raise your hand at any point, and I'm happy to take any questions, and I'll be here for the whole show as well. So just a little bit about me, just to sort of set the context for where I'm coming from here. I guess every company I've ever worked for has a blue logo. It just worked out that way. I don't know. I wasn't planning it, but that's how it's worked out. I was actually a journalist, so I worked for Gannett. I worked for a daily newspaper for some years. I worked at Edelman Public Relations, one of the big, massive PR firms that if you ever heard of a PR firm, that's probably one of them. I went in-house and went to work for Samsung Electronics, where I was the one managing the PR, and I had multiple agencies that I was managing. So I've been on kind of both sides of that. And then I started my own firm, Lightspeed PR, which I've been heading up for about 5 years. And Lightspeed PR is the official agency of Augmented World Expo. So we're the ones who are, if you're a journalist, we're the ones who you get your press pass from, and we're the ones who are helping to get articles written about the show. So that's kind of how we came to be involved in this. It's actually our 5th year handling AWE. The first year that we handled AWE, we had about 30 reporters come. And this year we have more than 400 journalists coming to AWE. Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and I have to tell you, the excitement about it is through the roof. So we're just hanging on for dear life. It's a lot of fun. But I'm talking about PR, but what exactly is PR? A lot of people don't really know what it is. People just have no clue. They hear it discussed, they hear it mentioned. They don't know what it is. This is the Puerto Rican flag. When we talk about PR, we are not talking about Puerto Rico. Usually we're not. Sometimes we are. But usually it's nothing to do with that. But some people make that connection. The good news is that PR, if you're a fan of medicine, you may watch ER, Chicago Hope or something. If you're a fan of law, then you've seen legal shows. So people know about these professions. PR is no exception. PR has been represented in TV shows for decades. I'll give you an example right here. Everybody knows Samantha Jones, Sex and the City. I could use a Cosmo right now. If anybody has a Cosmo, if you could just send it up right here, just pass it forward, pay it forward, okay? Yes, Samantha Jones was a public relations executive on Sex and the City. Well, okay, I'm going to admit to you that was not really a documentary. That was a little bit stylized, a little bit exaggerated. So there's another show. I'm curious if anybody knows that's actually about a whole team of PR people. Anybody know? Anybody know what it is? No? Yes, Spin City, a show about a whole group of people that are spinning and doing cover-ups and manipulating the truth for their lying, deceitful boss, Michael J. Fox playing himself. So that is, the term spin is not the most positive word in the world, and we in the PR community, we're not in love with this. The truth is that PR has not really been depicted particularly well in TV or movies. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it's really like and what it really is. Really, if you ask 5 people to define PR, you're going to get 6 answers. If you ask 6 people, you'll get 5. We kind of run out of juice there. Everybody has their own definition of PR, but I'm going to give you the real one. Okay, the real definition. I'm going to read it because I want to get it right. Our goal is we want to influence the mindset of a specific group of people. We call it a target audience, okay? We want to reach those folks. And just as importantly, we want to drive action. We want to get them to do something. We want to get them to go to your website, buy your stock, apply for a job. We want to get them to go to your store. We want to get them to try your product. We always want to drive not just an opinion, but usually we want to drive some kind of action. There's always exceptions. So we talk about target audiences. Who are they? Some examples. It could be customers. It could be employees of the company. It could be investors. It could be the Wall Street audience. It could be government, policymakers, international organizations and rule bodies, any other businesses, analysts, you name it. So there's a wide range of different audiences that we may want to reach. So when we talk about PR, we're talking about the people who can reach the people who need to know about your company or know about you. But that sounds like advertising, right? Another great show. And by the way, I didn't get the Cosmo, but now I kind of want a cigarette after seeing this. So if you have one of those, just get, I mean, cigarettes are okay, right? After all, more Camels smoke doctors than, what did I just say? More doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. This is one of my favorite ads of all time, because not only does it say that more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette, but it says that all we want you to do is just try it for 30 days. And then we promise that you were going to stick with it after that. It's really fantastic. A lot of people, when we talk about changing attitudes and communicating a story and telling people something that's new, people think about advertising. And one of the big takeaways that I have for you is that PR isn't advertising. Widely confused. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Advertising has its place, but PR is very different. So I want to explain to you the difference between PR and advertising. They're both part of marketing, is the umbrella, but they're two totally different types of marketing. Now, when you watch a TV show, there's the program that you want to watch, and then there's the stuff that you fast forward through. Okay, so you know the difference, right? Which is the advertising and which is the actual content. When you read a magazine, there's the articles, and then there's the pages that you flip through. When you're driving, you're trying to keep your eyes on the road and you're trying not to be distracted by the billboards. So the advertising is the content that you're usually trying to kind of skip past. If you want to get into the content that people are focusing on, that's the editorial content. And that's when PR comes in. The job of PR, one of our jobs, is to get into that editorial content. So working with editors, we're working with reporters, we're working with producers, to get your company into that article. And because that's not paid for, because that's a legitimate editorial article, it's more credible, people are more likely to read it, it's going to have more of an impact. That's the big advantage of PR. There is a big advantage of advertising, and that is that you control it completely. Advertising, you're writing that ad, you're shooting that photo, you're choosing every word. So advertising is when I'm paying you to be my friend. PR, we kind of make friends. We like to make friends for real. And there's room for both. I'm not saying that you should do one or the other, but I want you to understand the difference. But I've really oversimplified it a little bit. There's quite a lot of other things that we do besides getting that editorial coverage. And here's a list of things, and I'm not a big list guy, but I'll give you a list of things. We're developing the messages. We're creating the content. Things like blogs and white papers and case histories. We're getting you involved in trade shows like this one. We're helping you with crisis, providing counsel and strategy if something goes wrong. We're doing the media training so we can help you understand how to work with journalists and how to communicate your message. We're helping you with the rankings and the awards, super important. And community engagement, that's dealing with people on social media and answering questions. The real, true public part of the public relations. So really what we do here really depends on what your goal is. So you need to understand what your objective is. One common objection that our clients have is they want to exit. They're done. They want to get acquired. I hear this a lot. One of our clients a couple of years ago was Crux, a data management platform. They wanted to raise awareness and visibility for the purpose of an acquisition. And this happened. Salesforce bought them for $700 million. Mission accomplished. That was good. They're not a client anymore because Salesforce had their own firm. It's bittersweet, right? But we're happy to do it. It's a job well done. We had another client, AARP. Now, if you think about AARP, you often get to think about what? Discount movie tickets. Maybe you're thinking about the magazine and Jamie Lee Curtis and stuff like that. They wanted to be known more for innovation. They wanted to completely transform their perception. So we created a program for them called the Innovation Champion Awards. And this is from the Washington Post. It was, they're based in DC. That was the top publication for them. For a business help seniors, you could win $10,000. They didn't put a huge amount of money into it. Not an enormous prize, but the point is that everybody was very interested in it. And this was covered widely. Changed perceptions. AARP then became known much more for innovation than for discounts and that sort of thing. So, really important, how to tell your story. Before you go out to the world, you need to figure out what are you going to say. And we can get into some specific examples with your companies. I'm happy to chat with any of you. I'm going to give you some broad 6 key things you need to do if you're going to tell your story successfully. You have to articulate the problem you're solving. Huge mistake that a lot of companies we work with make. They talk about their great new innovation, a great new product, but they don't say, what does it accomplish? What problem does it solve? You've heard this term, it's a solution in search of a problem. We want to avoid that. You want to say what the problem is that exists, and then what you're doing to solve the problem. We want to focus on not just the speeds and feeds, not how many pixels or the resolution or the depth of field, the RAM. We want to focus on the benefits. What does it help people do? We also want to minimize the jargon. This is something my team and I, we struggle with every day. We want to make sure that we're communicating in plain English. Here's the good news. If you communicate in plain English, then the really technical people will still understand. But if you communicate in a really technical way, then the mainstream audience, they're gone. You lost them. So always figure out how to say what you're saying in plain English without jargon. Imagine you were explaining it to your aunt, your uncle, your mom, your friend who's not in the industry, and how to make it clear to them what you're doing. Test it out. You also need to have a point of view. This is also something that, companies, our point of view is that you should buy our thing. Okay, that's not a point of view. I'll give you an example. One of the companies we're working with is Kopin Corporation, and the CEO of Kopin, John Fan, he gave a talk about the 5 common mistakes to avoid in VR, and also 5 best practices in AR. So it wasn't just talking about that company and what they're doing, it was guidance for the industry. So you need to have a point of view and not just be about a product. I also want to remind you to know your competition. Now, you're probably heads down on whatever you're doing with your product, your technology, your innovation, and nobody has got time necessarily to keep track on your competitors. But if you're going to do a communications campaign through PR, you need to know what the other guys are doing. Otherwise, you have no context. It's very important. And then finally, anybody heard of the elevator pitch? This is a common industry phrase, right? You got to get your pitch down to where you can sell somebody in an elevator. Well, guess what? We don't have that kind of time anymore. That's way too long. That's what, 2 minutes? Actually, for a while, we were talking about the escalator pitch. That's also too long. So now we're down to the fire pole pitch. It's, we may, Ghostbusters, right? As you slide down, you got to explain it that quickly. It's sort of like Twitter, but even shorter. Get it down to about 5 seconds, and we're good. And by the way, I'm not exaggerating even a little bit. We got to get that down. We got to get that streamlined as much as we can, and we can help you. Yes, sure.
Why has it gone down in time that you need to be able to explain what you're doing?
The question was, why is the time gone down? Well, it's a great question. It's really it's a ramification of shorter attention spans. We have so much competition for our attention. There's more channels, there's more internet, there's more different places we can look with social and everywhere, and no one's got the time that they used to really pay attention for more than a minute or two. So people are just looking for that shorter, more concise. It's more of a cultural evolution where Twitter being a big part of it. I mean, if I told you 10 years ago we were going to have a channel where everything was 140 characters, you would say that's crazy, but that's where the culture is. So that's really the reason. Sure, that's a great question. Great question. Thank you for that. Okay, let's see, I was right here. So, should I even do PR? Yep, PR is not a foregone conclusion. You need to make sure that you can spend 10 to 15% of your time supervising it. You need to have proof points to validate your claims. You need to have business goals that PR can drive. It could be sales, it could be your stock price. It could be making new hires, it could be getting acquired. Know your goals. Have spokespersons who are willing to talk. Sounds obvious. I've had clients hire us and, well, our CEO really is camera shy. That's the problem. So make sure your spokespersons are open to doing it. Have your story ready and be ready. I want to explain the difference because I've been in-house, I've worked at PR firms, and I've also, I've done both sides. The in-house, and you can take a picture of this because this is good stuff. You're gonna, if you're in-house, you're gonna be the ones aligning with sales and R&D. You're gonna be dealing with all the execs and dealing with lots of sensitive issues and getting the budget and managing the agency. But the agency are the ones who are gonna be keeping an eye out externally, looking at your competitors, building the list, doing the outreach, creating assets and doing the messaging. And I want to get to probably the most important slide. If I want to select a PR firm, how do I do it? Ask them these questions. What is your client list? What results have you had? Who's going to be on my team? Can you integrate with all these other channels? And ask them what XR means. You want to do a little test, right? Make sure they know. My final slide. The big pitfalls. If you hire an agency, don't rush. Don't make yourself in a position of having to rush to do it before a big announcement. Don't have unreasonable expectations. Talk to somebody to figure out what's reasonable. Then you'll be happy. Have your assets ready. Have your products tested. You only have one chance to make a good first impression. Have those spokespersons. Have some funding so you can pay for it. If you're down to your last buck, you shouldn't use it for PR. You should have a little extra. Know your competitors and understand your target market. Okay? I think I have 30 seconds for a question or two. Anything else? Questions, folks? You, sir.
Ethan, who's more difficult, the journalists or the clients?
Well, the journalists are always more difficult. The journalists are the ones who, they're not buying our BS, they're not falling for it. We've got to prove it, we've got to satisfy them. So yeah, the journalists are more difficult. Clients can be difficult, but journalists always are. You, sir.
I was wondering, in talking to people about these technologies that are not in the industry, I'm tempted to describe it mostly as VR, virtual reality, because most people seem to prefer that.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to talk about VR and AR because it's more explicit, but it's also kind of longer and not as catchy. And then I'm tempted to talk about XR, but it's like, that's a term that maybe it'll catch on more in the future, but it's certainly not as commonly known as VR.
Yeah, what's the question?
Well, I'm sorry, I was wondering if, from a public relations standpoint,
Yeah.
if you have any thoughts on that you can share.
The thoughts are that there's too many terms that don't mean enough. So I tell my clients focusing on these categories of VR and AR and XR and MR, not very productive. Focus on what you're actually doing with it. Like Ori said in his opening keynote, ask not what it can do for you, ask what you can do with it. So talk about what you're accomplishing. And these buzzwords kind of fall by the wayside. Do I have time for one more? Yes, ma'am.
From a content perspective, when you're sending things out to journalists, it's difficult, right? Because they may not have a headset, they have to do something with their phone to download the genre. How do you get around that from a perspective?
Well, we like to meet up with them in person and do the personal showcases. We like to do a lot of things by Skype. We like to bring them to trade shows like this. The best thing that I do is I get 4 or 5 clients together. Then I meet with a journalist and say, hey, I'm going to show you these 5 things in an hour. They love that. That's one of the advantages of working with an agency that specializes in space. You can get that kind of efficiency and do them all at once. But it's a great point. It's very hard to do them over the phone. I got to wrap. Please come chat with me. I'll be at booth 104, and thank you all for your attention.